Welcome back to Quietly Secure. Last time, we explored what actually happens during a data breach, and how attackers gain access to large collections of information, what kinds of data are usually exposed, and why breaches are often less dramatic but more systemic than people imagine. But whenever breaches are discussed, one fear appears almost immediately: identity theft. It's a phrase people hear constantly online. Companies warn about it after breaches. Advertisements promise protection from it. News headlines often frame it as an immediate danger. But what does identity theft actually mean in practice? How do criminals really exploit stolen information? And why do so many people misunderstand how these attacks usually happen? Because despite the dramatic name, identity theft is often far less cinematic than people imagine. And understanding the reality behind it makes the risk much easier to manage calmly. When people hear the phrase identity theft, they often imagine someone completely becoming another person, opening bank accounts instantly, taking over entire lives, stealing everything overnight. And while severe fraud cases do happen, most identity theft is much narrower and more practical. Usually, criminals are not trying to literally become someone else. They're trying to exploit pieces of information for financial gain. A stolen credit card, an online account, a reuse of a password, personal details used for scams or fraud attempts. In reality, identity theft is often less about a single dramatic event and more about the misuse of fragmented information across different systems. One reason identity theft feels confusing is that people often underestimate how useful small pieces of information can become when combined together. An email address alone may seem harmless. A phone number may not feel sensitive. A date of birth might appear relatively unimportant. But modern fraud often works by gradually combining information from multiple sources. A breached password from one website, a phone number from another, public information from social media, details gathered through phishing emails or scam calls. Individually, each piece may seem minor. Together, they can help criminals impersonate users, bypass account recovery systems, or convince companies that they are legitimate customers. And this is why social engineering has become so important in modern fraud, because attacking people is often easier than attacking technology directly. Most identity-related fraud falls into a few predictable categories: account takeovers, financial fraud, scams impersonating trusted organizations, and credential reuse attacks. For example, if attackers obtain username and passwords from a breach, they may try those credentials on other services, not because they expect every account to work, but because many people reuse passwords across platforms. Similarly, phishing attacks often attempt to trick users into voluntarily giving away sensitive information. Fake bank alerts, fraudulent delivery messages, urgent account warnings. I assume we've all seen all of those. These attacks work not because technology fails completely, but because humans naturally respond to urgency, fear, and trust. And increasingly, large-scale scams are automated and industrialized. Millions of messages sent simultaneously. Only a tiny percentage needs to succeed to become profitable. One of the most important things to understand about identity theft is that certain protections dramatically reduce risk, far more than people often realize. using unique passwords for every account, enabling multi-factor authentication, securing primary email accounts carefully, avoid panic during suspicious messages or phone calls. These simple habits block huge numbers of real-world attacks, because most criminals are not targeting individuals personally. They're looking for easy opportunities at scale. Accounts without multi-factor authentication, reuse of passwords, people responding emotionally under pressure. The goal is usually efficiency. And strong security habits make someone a much harder target very quickly. Part of the reason identity theft feels so frightening is that modern digital systems are deeply interconnected. Banking, email, government services, shopping platforms, communication systems. So people naturally worry that losing control of one piece could threaten everything else. And the companies selling monitoring or protection services often amplify that fear heavily. But in practice, most fraud is opportunistic rather than catastrophic. Problems are usually resolved through account recovery systems, fraud protections, and financial safeguards. Banks reverse fraudulent transactions, accounts get locked, passwords get reset. That does not make identity theft harmless, but it does mean the reality is often more manageable than people fear initially. Understanding the system calmly is usually far more effective than imagining worst-case scenarios constantly. One of the deeper realities of modern digital life is that identity itself has gradually become distributed across many online systems. Accounts, databases, authentication systems, platforms, verification processes. And because of that, protecting identity online is no longer just about protecting a single document or account. It's about maintaining control over access. Who can log in? Who can reset accounts? Who can impersonate someone successfully? In many ways, modern cybersecurity is increasingly about managing trust relationships between systems and people. And identity sits at the centre of all of it. At the beginning of this episode, we asked what identity theft actually looks like in the real world. And the answer is usually much less dramatic and more procedural than people imagine. Most attacks involve stolen credentials, phishing, scams, social engineering, and attempts to exploit reused information across interconnected systems. The good news is that a relatively small number of consistent habits dramatically reduce the real-world risks. Unique passwords, password managers, multi-factor authentication, careful handling of suspicious communications, not because perfect security exists, but because most attacks succeed through predictability and convenience rather than technical sophistication. And understanding that reality makes the digital world feel far less mysterious. Next time, we'll step away from accounts and identity and look at something surprisingly physical, where the internet actually lives, the servers, data centers, and cloud systems powering modern digital life, and why so much of the internet now depends on a surprisingly small number of massive infrastructure providers. Thank you for listening, and in all this, stay calm and stay quietly secure.